out of nowhere, I got a migraine that was permanent. It would never go away. And I was seeing a neurologist that prescribed amitriptyline, which is basically a very low dose of something that prevented the migraine from happening, but it also happened to knock me out, and I was able to get sleep. And it was a different type of sleep because it's not the kind of happy, peaceful sleep when you're like all balanced and healthy. It was the knockout kind of sleep. So by the time I was graduating college, I had made the transition, and I was not getting migraines anymore, even without the pill.
I'm so glad you're here. My name is Jocelyn John. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a sleep science coach. I'm also the author of Sleep Tight, the #1 secret to achieving your dreams. I help high-performing individuals and busy professionals to improve sleep quality for a more productive and fulfilling life. And welcome very much indeed to today's Sleep Tight podcast. I have such an amazing guest that you're gonna absolutely get coached by. Did I say coached? Yes, Rachel, my dear friend. She's a mental health coach, and I also think of you as a holistic practitioner, just in terms of all the tips that I always get when I talk to you about like wellness from a holistic standpoint. So I'm really excited because today we're actually going to talk about how to overcome insomnia. Maybe right now you are experiencing insomnia, restless nights. You are waking up multiple times per night and you're just really fed up right now thinking, how can I get back to actually achieving that peaceful, high quality sleep? Today, you're gonna get answers from Rachel, who has actually overcome this, and I'll be here to ask her the deepest questions.
Yes.
But you are also such a great giver and such a great, well-spoken person that even if I didn't ask questions, you'd probably be able to dig deep, and we're all here to help people out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this.
Yes. Yeah. So let's just start somewhere very basic. What was your experience like when you were struggling with insomnia, and how did that impact your life?
Well, my experience started when I was around 13, and it went on for several years. And I started having trouble with sleep during a time period where there was a lot going on in my life, and it just wasn't the priority to get it checked out at all. So that went on for years, and it wasn't until much later on that I was trying to address something else, and that's how I overcame insomnia. Which is, we'll get into it. But it affected every aspect of my life. I was a completely different person. I was always angry, and I was snappy. And people that were around me needed to understand that I struggled with sleep, because that gave them the context that I might not be able to regulate my emotions properly, because when you don't have sleep, you can't operate well.
That's right.
So yeah, I would say that it's a life changer to be able to get sleep.
Yes,
I didn't know what it was like for many years.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and again for being here. That's interesting. From 13 years old, and then you ended up trying to fix this while you were actually trying to fix something else.
Yeah.
And this just speaks to how holistic we are.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It just reminds me, in my own practice, I always see sleep as a holistic element, because I think often people look at sleep as this isolated element that it's just the one thing we do when we go to bed. But interestingly, the fact that you ended up getting to fixing your insomnia while you were trying to fix something else, it just goes to show how holistic and connected we are, and sleep is as well.
Yeah, everything is connected. It's amazing.
Yes, because sleep is affecting your cognitive health. It's affecting how your brain works. It's affecting how your hormones are expressed, your appetite hormones, your blood sugars. It's affecting your heart. It's affecting your reproductive organs, and you're referring to also how you feel like you are a completely different person, which this actually came up for me as well. Like, what do you think about this idea of insomniac identity? I want to give context, because in my experience and in my practice, and also from reading up online, people literally just call themselves like insomniac, as if it's part of their identity. And actually, this, as a transformational person, as a coach as well, like I coach myself, we coach ourselves, knowing that when you are stuck at somewhere, I never really, I just want to see your perspective, because is it really a good idea to create your identity based on the struggles you're experiencing in your life?
Right. So I think it's super important to be able to identify the struggle itself. Because sometimes you may be having weird symptoms and you don't realize that it's coming from this one condition. And by addressing that condition, all these other symptoms can be taken care of.
Right.
So I think that part is important.
Yes.
I didn't find it helpful to identify myself as an insomniac.
Right.
Because I'm a lot more than just lack of sleep.
Exactly. Me neither. I didn't find it helpful. So I think just wanted to like highlight it for people, because I think when we identify ourselves with the health problems we're experiencing, it actually puts us in the victim mentality or victim state. And it's actually much harder to try and fix your insomnia if you think that you're insomniac. What I've observed is people who say, oh, I'm an insomniac. So then when you say, hey, have you tried this method? Have you tried this strategy? Or, hey, I have a new book. Check it out. Read it. Maybe you might find some tools that may help you. And then people might say, well, I'm just an insomniac. I've tried so many things. Because I think that identity process, it holds people back from actually taking the steps to get out of that identity. It becomes like the truest.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I am an insomniac, therefore I have insomnia,
and then therefore this is who I am. But it's not who you are. Like, we both have overcome insomnia, and in the moment it feels like, yes, it has affected your personality, your mood, like you said. You said you were always angry, for example. But from an expert perspective, of course, sleep deprivation is affecting the part of the brain that actually controls your emotions, the amygdala, and you just tend to react, and you have exaggerated emotions, and you tend to also catastrophize situations. So someone can like your kid is annoying, just part of being a kid, but because you're part of the brain that is in control of emotions, is this big, it's making it look very big. Now it's a big deal, and then you end up reacting. And another part of sleep deprivation is like the part of the brain that's in charge of the logic. It's just so the logic is down, but then emotions are high. And
it's just a bad combo.
It's a bad combo. And so no matter how far your identity has gone, please know that you can get out, and let's move on and see what we can help you with on that journey. So my next question is, how was the journey like? What strategies and techniques will help for you to move from that state to that state? And you did start to speak about how like you were looking into another situation, which ended up helping you. So I imagine that one of the strategies definitely like overall health inventory, to just kind of look at your health in general, like what's up, and then you may discover I imagine that was one of them, but I'm curious if you want to get into that, if you wish, and then share with us other strategies and techniques as well.
Sure. So should we go for the longer story of the journey?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the first few years, I was a teenager, and also in my early 20s, I basically, since there was so much going on in our lives, in my family's life, my parents never took me to see a sleep specialist or anything.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is that they themselves have sleep trouble, and it just was kind of taken for, that's not the expression, taken for granted, but it was just so normal that it wasn't a problem because it was so normal in our family. And so I kind of kept that attitude into my adulthood, because I just thought, it's just this is just how I live. I just don't have sleep. Other people do, but I don't. And it wasn't until I got migraines in college while I was going through a difficult transition there, and it was very sudden, out of nowhere. I got a migraine that was permanent. It would never go away. And I was seeing a neurologist that prescribed amitriptyline, which is basically a very low dose of something that prevented the migraine from happening, but it also happened to knock me out, and I was able to get sleep. And it was a different type of sleep, because it's not the kind of happy, peaceful sleep when you're all balanced and healthy. It was the knockout kind of sleep. So the next morning I would have to really amp up the caffeine content of my life, just to be able to get out of the slumber that was so heavy, because it was a drug. So it really helped me be able to graduate from college. So I don't want to take the value away from it. When you're in it, you need to do what you need to do. And once I graduated from college, we tried reducing the prescription until it was nothing, and see how things were doing. In the background, I had been doing other things to take care of my migraines. So that was primarily diet, lifestyle. Because I was told that my migraine would never go away, that it's genetic and you're gonna have it forever. There's nothing to be done about it.
But it's interesting, how can it be genetic if you started off at one point in your life?
Right. So
what did you feel about that explanation, that it was genetic?
The way I felt about it was no.
Yeah, right?
That's what I felt. I am not going to live with a permanent migraine. Can you imagine?
No.
It's just no. So that's how I felt about it. Just nope, I'm not accepting this.
This is not part of my identity.
This will not be a thing.
Right, it just started. It must be something. There must be something I can do. And then you went to continue to explore.
So it turned out that the migraine gene was being activated. From my perspective, it's kind of like a light switch, and what turned it on was a combination of healthy boundaries, a low stress life. It's very much necessary, but the diet was a big component for me. There were a lot of triggers, so I had to transition to a whole foods diet, and that was very slow, because any quick transitions triggers a migraine. So it was a fine balance. So by the time I was graduating college, I had made the transition, and I was not getting migraines anymore, even without the pill.
Okay, I'm really happy to hear this. So it sounds like while fixing your migraines, you end up getting a prescription drug, which definitely helped in terms of at least slowing your brain down, and at least to be able to get some sort of rejuvenation. But we also established that kind of sleep wasn't the same as natural sleep, because certain meditations will slow down processes, or they will give you the sedation, for example, to slow down.
However, it was sedative.
However, it's not necessarily that it will give you that naturalistic sleep. In order to get natural sleep, we go through 5 stages, and I just call them compartments of healing. You have to
Yeah.
imagine them as so, right?
Yeah.
Stage 1, 2, very light. You spend just a few minutes, and then you go to stage 3 and 4, which are really good for deep rejuvenation, repairing tissues, rebuilding muscles, rebalancing blood sugars, and increasing fat burning mechanisms, and also boosting the immune system and repairing genes. And then you get into the stage 5, REM sleep.
The best stage.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. I don't think there's best.
Yeah, but when you cannot access REM, it just becomes something it has a special place in my heart.
Me too.
For a long time, I had no access to REM.
That's true.
So.
Yeah, but the deep sleep is also important. It's like you also want to be able to actually like
of course.
regulate your immune system and rejuvenate the organs. Yes, so REM.
REM.
And then REM is really important for emotional rejuvenation, memory consolidation, and you are actually getting the brain cleaning, which is very interesting. All these adaptations that happens during sleep to actually allow the rejuvenation for body and mind. Like, for example, the brain specifically will reduce the size of brain cells just to allow the cerebrospinal fluid to go through to clean up any toxins that have built up during the day. And some of the toxins that are cleaned up include beta amyloids proteins, and these beta amyloid proteins, we all have them, but when they accumulate so much over time, they have been associated with early diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. So very important, comparing to the kind of sleep that you get as a result of medication, which was still better than nothing for you at the time. But for someone who is wanting to get to like the best high quality sleep, going for medication wouldn't be the optimized version. You did point this out to say, when you're in it, you do what you can.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then it's also, while you do that, sometimes you are also you kept on exploring towards like the best solution, the most holistic solution.
Yeah.
So then after that,
my insomnia problems pretty much came back 100% after I went off that pill.
Okay.
But again, it was such a normal thing to me that I wasn't really looking for a solution to the insomnia per se. I started getting more into healing overall because I had a lot of health issues, and I didn't know where they were all coming from, but I just knew I wanted to get better, and I wasn't raised with the best habits. So
that's okay.
Part of it was installing all these healthy habits.
Yeah, and it's okay to forgive ourselves for the past that we've had. The people who helped us on the previous journey, they probably did the best with what they knew.
Oh, for sure.
And then I think it's important to apply self-compassion and gratitude and just be grateful for the new knowledge that we have and just act on that. Because I'm so glad that you were able to actually like empower yourself that way to say, okay, it's okay how I was raised, but now I know better. And then
yeah, for sure, you do the best you can with what you were given, it's so back to the story.
Yes.
So after college, I went into the real world of working, and it got really bad because the stress was so high, and there were a lot of factors involved. But one of the factors was my job. That was not just very high responsibility and stressful, but lots of overtime. And it was to the point that my job was everything. Like I had to work a good like 50, 60 hours a week. And it's the kind of thing that you take home with you. I couldn't really separate it. So I had I didn't even have the option of having a healthy boundary there. And it also wasn't what I wanted to do. So lots of issues with the work life there.
Yes.
And it basically took a back injury that was disabling for me to be able to like make the 180-degree turn in the positive direction.
Yes.
So I took time off to be able to recover from my back injury. And while I was taking time off, I'm trying to stay on track because it gets so scattered. I'm like, oh, there's so many things happening during this period. So basically, I wanted to heal in general.
Yes.
And
holistic healing.
Holistic healing, yes. Mm-hmm. And I started to catch on to the fact that there might be something more in the mental / emotional health field.
Yes.
And what I did was I hired a coach, because that's I know normally people recommend, you need to get a therapist, but therapists are not always within financial reach for a lot of people.
That's true.
So I kind of hired someone that was within my reach.
Yes.
And that could help me with the self-love part, because I kept hearing that was so important.
Oh yeah, it is.
So I hired a self-love coach, and so during this time period, I learned a really profound self-compassion techniques and presence techniques, and I started doing shadow work, finding the core beliefs and finding the root of a problem, and so basically a lot of shadow work, and then eventually got into trauma work, but that's later on.
Yeah.
But basically within those first 3 months of taking time off and just doing self-compassion and shadow work, it kind of went away.
The insomnia?
Yeah.
The insomnia just
it just kind of went away.
Just pause for a moment.
And
that's whoa.
And to put it into context, with the back injury, when it's that bad, you're basically in pain all the time.
Yeah.
There's no break from it, and the pain will wake me up every half hour or so.
Yeah.
And I was never able to access the deep sleep.
Yeah.
And because I had insomnia, once it woke me up, then I stayed awake for a long time. So it would take me forever to get another half hour nap.
Yes.
So the way that what really changed was not so much the lack of pain, but the fact that I was able to go right back to sleep when the pain would wake me. So I started getting longer chunks of sleep. Okay. And then eventually the pain wouldn't really wake me up.
So what do you think changed? Because for someone listening, so you started doing some self-love work, shadow work, and this ties back into the next question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask, what do you think, what was the role of mindset in overcoming insomnia? But it sounds like you already started to touch on that, because for someone who is actually listening, what changed? So, and this is exactly what I talk about in my book, Sleep Tight, the number one secret to achieving your dreams. While experiencing sleep problems and health problems, often we think it's this very specific local thing that we can just get a pill for. And once we take the pill, it's going to get fixed. But there's actually all these other aspects that affect sleep. This is why in my book, each chapter is designated to a specific factor affecting sleep. And I'm really excited about where the conversation is going right now, because you recently just started doing self-love and self-care, but at a very deep level, where you challenge yourself to look at your core beliefs and how those things affected you. And I love that you start with self-love, because it's the beginning. When you don't have self-love and compassion, like we were saying earlier, that when you just keep blaming yourself and putting yourself in a box, that's not loving yourself. Yeah.
And I had been doing self-care for years at that point.
Yeah,
but it was not self-loving self-care. It was very it was like a list of chores that I had to get through.
So what would you say is the difference between the self-care you used to do? Because self-care is a really important analogy right now, because I think that when we say self-care, everybody has their own meaning.
Yeah.
It sounds like the meaning of self-care changed for you along this journey.
Yeah. I thought I was loving myself. I thought it was self-love. So it wasn't until someone else pointed out that that's not exactly self-love.
What did you used to do for self-care before and then compared to how you shifted it?
So self-care, like keeping a fairly healthy diet, getting activity, having a nighttime routine, even though I couldn't get sleep, but I would still have my nighttime routine to ease into the sleep part, and journaling, and going to get massages, and it's just kind of taking care of your body.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean by self-care.
Yeah, I understand, but I was trying to picture it for someone. Let's say, someone who is doing self-care in a way that's not it sounds like your self-care shifted. So that part is the new way of self-care. What was the old way of self-care?
Okay, so that's the definition of self-care as far as I know, like the way I know it. Yeah, in general. But you can be eating a healthy meal while not wanting it and while thinking negative things about yourself.
I see.
So the healthy meal can hardly do anything for you while you're hating yourself and hating the meal. So it was I learned the difference between like the really internal kind of self-love versus the external things that you can do for yourself to demonstrate self-love.
It sounds like making self-love at the center of self-care is important, because otherwise you could be doing things that are self-care, but then if you don't internalize them and use them as a process to honor yourself and align your mind and body connection, then self-care could just be like a chore. Something you superficially do, like, oh, I just eat broccoli, but then while you're eating it, you really don't like it and you are swearing.
Why are you eating the broccoli?
Yeah. I get it.
Is it because you like it? Is it just because it's healthy and you should? Or
yes. And this goes back to aligning our actions with the core values. And I also believe that we should have everything stemming from our values, not the other way around. Because if you just do the action without having a prerequisite or a defining value for that action, most likely that action is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So core values, really important, and it was important for your journey as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, because when we talk about core values, it's like specific things that you commit to. Is there like specific values that you adopted to help with this journey? Or it could be values or mindset as well.
I think it was the stubbornness, because I just refused to give up.
Yes.
I was just very stubborn. And I just could not accept that there wouldn't be a solution to my health issues.
Yes.
I could not accept it.
I think it's also determination, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think that stubbornness, people might say, oh, stubborn, different connotation. But what I'm hearing is like determination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just could not take no for an answer.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's good. And I think there are also people out there also who think, well, I've tried so many things and I've been told. And this is also what I'm really passionate about as a nurse, like empowering people to take part in their own healing as well. While health professionals, we've been trained to take care of people, but people also have a lot to teach us. So when you're given information, it's also important to honor like how you feel about it and ask the right questions. And if your intuition is saying seek more ways, ask more questions, or visit another person, seek for a different modality, I think you should go for it instead of the conventional way where you're like, well, I talked to one healthcare professional specialist, they told me this, so that might be what it is. But I think it's really important to honor your holistic nature and know that there could be so many different ways. And this is why we are all individual, unique beings. We also call it bio-individuality. Whereas like someone might take this pill, it's going to help them, and the other person takes it, it doesn't help them.
Yeah. If it even does anything.
Yeah. So this is why it's really important not to give up. Like you, people be inspired by your determination, and also I encourage them to do that. Whoever's listening, and if you've tried so many things, don't give up, because you could be trying a new tool today that's gonna change everything. Just like you, self-love changed everything. So don't say, "Oh, I've tried everything." Try one more tool today. Try another two tomorrow. You just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even have a positive attitude about it, to be honest. I was just like, no, I'm not accepting.
Determination.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then now I'm just curious. We already talked about this a little bit, but like beyond the techniques and strategies, what other lifestyle factors played a role?
Lifestyle factors. I think it was about, aside from the stuff that kind of everybody tells you, like, you know, the healthy food and the movement and journaling and things like that are kind of the things that don't really help when you have insomnia. You know? Like the
surface level.
Yeah, we're talking about the basic self-care level that people tell you to do. Okay, you're doing that. That's not gonna cure your insomnia, most likely. So aside from those things, I think the biggest lifestyle change for me was installing practices that were daily and that were very internal practices. So it was kind of frustrating because it doesn't necessarily have the cathartic satisfaction of doing something physical.
Right.
Like, for example, if you want to bulk up and be able to lift this many pounds, then it's something physical and you can have like visible targets and you can see the physical difference in your body. But when you're doing internal stuff, you're kind of just sitting there with your eyes closed and doing all this internal work.
Or you do stickers like me.
Stickers.
That's how you get your mental satisfaction. You're like, oh yeah, I discovered
daily inspiration.
This. Yeah, this was my like breakthrough, everyone. Like it's right there on the wall. Yeah. Other than that, you don't really feel that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the practices, like primarily self-compassion, right?
Yeah.
That was like foundational. Presence.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones for me that I didn't think that I even needed was, and the mental health professionals call it trauma work. However, I'm hesitant to use the word trauma because it's just very loaded. It's a big word.
Right.
So I rather refer to it as undigested events. So things,
that's a really good way to describe
things that have happened in your life and you're like, no, it's fine, it's in the past, it's fine. But you can't sleep, so clearly it might not be fine.
Come to visit.
Yeah. There's a little bit of discrepancy there that needed to be addressed. Right. And it happens to a lot of people, and when like pretty much everybody has some kind of indigestion in that sense, but it affects everybody differently.
Yes.
So that was a major part of my journey. And I started feeling, because whenever I address a particular event,
right,
I would feel so much lighter afterwards,
right,
you know? And it gets to a point where the event doesn't have an emotional charge anymore. And that's how you know
it's
clear. Yeah.
Clear. Creating that space to feel. Either you create a safe space to feel, or you create a safe space for someone else.
Yeah.
You either create a safe space to feel, or you create a safe space for someone else to help you feel. Because some people,
I needed someone to help me with it and to teach me how to do it for myself.
Right.
For sure.
Some people have just so many undigested events. If they try to feel for themselves, it might be just too overwhelming.
Yeah, and a lot of us, we don't know how to have unconditional presence. We need someone to demonstrate it for you.
Right.
Before you know what it's like.
Unconditional presence is really important. And I heard this a long time ago with a person I was working with. Now she's a therapist. And she was talking about how we need help to feel our feelings. Okay. And it actually takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, internal work to get to the point where you can feel alone. And I'm starting to get there. I still need my therapist to feel certain feelings, but I have, like you said, incorporating daily practices where you feel like you can handle the unconditional presence to feel in whatever amount you can feel. Maybe for now you can feel this much, and if you did it daily, it will still reduce the bigger undigested event load from there to like here.
Yeah.
And then over time you become lighter and lighter and lighter. And then this just speaks to how sleep is generated by the brain. And so then if it's overwhelmed thinking about what happened, processing so many thoughts, it's unable to actually focus on that and then also focus on the sleep cycle.
Yeah.
So the inner work, while it might not feel as satisfying right away, you don't get those dopamine hits right away.
It's not very sexy.
It's not sexy. And actually, in my book, I asked this question: what does the discomfort mean to you? Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Because we go through discomfort, but the other side is really sweet, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get to the other side.
The reward is worth it.
The reward is worth it. Because it's that... How can you describe that further? Like, you say you feel lighter. Like, for me, I have felt it many, many times as this, like, lightness. It feels to me like I've been carrying, like, a backpack full of rocks.
Yeah.
And then I'm finally able to put it down. And I'm just feeling this breeze come on my face after being so sweaty carrying this bag. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
All those sticky notes and those breakthroughs. That's why I stick them up there. How about you? Like, how does it feel to finally go through undigested event and process it? And you are at the other end. Yes, you're getting better sleep, but how else are you feeling? Like,
it's a freedom of thinking, freedom of being. Especially when, like, I used to have a lot of anxiety, and there was like an undercurrent of panic in the background always.
Yeah.
And after addressing that, just the absence of that, it's hard to describe unless you know the difference between the two states.
Yeah.
You just don't have it. It's just open. You're free.
Your openness, your freedom.
Yeah.
You are flowing.
You don't have this negative thing weighing you down.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, like, for people out there who haven't started doing that inner work, like you said, you were doing all this sleep hygiene stuff, journaling, all these basic things. You're respecting how sleep works. You're getting out to get your sunlight in the morning. You're going for walks. You're eating well, but you still couldn't overcome this insomnia until you actually faced your inner demons. Yeah. And just look at yourself and say, what's really keeping me up at night? And in my practice, we talk about all these things. They are also some physical things that can keep people at night, like inflammation if they have like gut health issues. But it's also really important to do that self-inventory and look at yourself and be honest and say, what am I observing? It really does start with that observation. Instead of trying to fit yourself in the box and say, oh, my doctor said this. Like, but really, what have you observed? What are the thoughts that are coming up for you? Yeah. Is it connected to something undigested? And do you need someone to help you untangle that? And what daily practices can you bring in to actually continue to get lighter and lighter so you'll be able to fall asleep easier? Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very rewarding journey.
It is. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you this question as well. In your experience, what do you think are some of the common mistakes that people are making when it comes to resolving the insomnia?
Okay. Common mistakes that I've observed, both in my experience and some of the clients I've had in the past.
Yeah.
Number one is, I would say, just accepting it. The fact that you have insomnia and you're going to have it for the rest of your life. Like, just not trying to heal.
Yeah, so
I guess
saying that you accept it and that's how you're gonna live your life, that is a mistake because
then it will be your entire life.
yeah, because now you're letting go of any possibility. You are dismissing any possibility for fixing it, and there are many options out there, starting with getting to the root cause. And once you get to the root cause, there is higher chances of fixing your insomnia. But if then you say, well, that's just how it is, then that you are already making such a huge mistake, because then you're not going to follow through.
Yeah, that's one of them. Another one is, which is kind of funny for me to bring up, but you may think that alcohol helps, but it actually doesn't.
Yes.
And the same thing with like pills and whatever else you're taking to just kind of get by. And not to shame anybody for doing that, because I did it too. You have to do what you have to do in the moment when you're desperate. But it's important to keep in mind that a permanent solution is not necessarily the thing that brings you immediate relief.
Yes.
A lot of times the permanent solution takes work, it takes time, and it's a progressive
journey.
Yeah, it's a progressive journey, and you feel a little bit better and a little bit better, but it's not going to be overnight.
Yes.
Well, hopefully it is for you, but I haven't observed that.
Yeah, so you're just encouraging patience.
Yeah, patience.
Patience instead of instant gratification solutions that don't last and take you back to zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that used to happen to me was, because in my case, it was either I could not sleep until like 4 a.m. and then I had to wake up at 6. So that was one of the things. Yeah. Or I would be able to fall asleep on time, but then I would wake up at like 2 a.m. And again, I don't have enough room or the chance to be able to catch enough sleep. So what I would do is try to fall asleep really bad. And I would be in bed trying to fall asleep and worrying about the day because it meant that I was going to be impaired. And so I would be worried about, how am I going to get through this and how am I going to do that? And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So basically just trying to force myself to fall asleep and resisting the fact that my body was not able to fall asleep at that moment. So I would think the mistake there is resisting that, because it actually helps to just go with it and just let it go. It's not in the cards for you right now. So go do something productive or something creative. Yeah. Just, be kind to yourself in that moment and let it be.
Yes, absolutely. And I also recommend this, and other sleep experts recommend this. When you are tossing in bed and can't fall asleep, don't stay there, and also watch. We have it here. Catch, check, and change your thoughts. Yes. Like you are tossing, you can't sleep, and you've been doing that. It's been half hour. Don't do that for hours and hours.
Yeah, it adds stress to the situation.
It will add stress to the situation, because now you're worrying and you're actually having your stress response even intensify, which is increasing your stress hormone. And when you have your stress hormone really high, that's the opposite of sleep. Now it's actually suppressing your sleep cycle. So give yourself patience and compassion, but also observe your thoughts. So catch your thoughts, check them, and change them to something positive. And I highly recommend, like you said, focus on something else. You can do a vision board where you can, some people already have a vision board created. Maybe it's something you are aspiring to in the future. And I practice very often when I'm having lingering thoughts. I just actually try to think of a positive memory that I've had either that day or in the past week.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it really is a good distraction. So you do vision board, aspire for the future, or think of a memory from that day or in the last little while. Good memory you had, the memory that really made you happy and joyful. And then ask yourself a question about the situation. I have been doing this, and this is why actually in my book, at the end of each chapter, I have general prompt questions, reflection questions, because I think asking ourselves questions is really important. What questions do is they change the direction of your neural firing in the brain. Because if you are thinking, say, you are thinking one thought, I imagine it's one lane in the brain. It's like, that's why you're thinking about.
You're on one path.
Yeah, but it could also be connected to other similar paths. It's like, it's all going, towards the west. But now you ask yourself a question, you are turning back to east. So I have found that very helpful.
To change your emotional state and perspective.
Yes, because I ask myself a question. For example, like, what's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What can I do to stay calm and stay abundant? You can ask yourself whatever question that works for you. So I feel like, those top 3. If you can't fall asleep, you're tossing at night, don't stay there and focusing on how negative your day is going to go and worrying. Instead, do a vision board, think of positive memories, or ask yourself a question. Those things are going to turn you around, and you may actually find luck. Let us know how that works for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the ones I've used, and they have been really helpful.
Yeah, and one analogy that my clients have found very helpful is the multi-layer cake of anxiety. Because in this example, when you're tossing in bed trying so hard to fall asleep, there's already an anxiety that's kind of built in with the state of not being able to fall asleep. And if on top of that you add the anxiety of thinking about how you're not able to fall asleep, it just adds to the layer, another layer to that cake. And it's unnecessary. You already have enough anxiety to deal with. So, I think those things are really gonna help.
Yeah, they have
change
helped
the emotional
me
state.
on my journey. I still use the positive memories. I still ask myself questions just to let go of the day. Yeah, it's been a really great conversation. Is there something else you'd like to add before I ask you the last question?
Maybe keep it simple.
Yeah.
Something that's easy for you to do. That's not too much of a challenge. Because when you're in that state, everything is difficult.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Self-compassion, self-love. Keep it simple. Be kind to yourself. It's a journey. You're not stuck there. That's not who you are. Things can change for you like it did for us. Yeah, I think this is a really great place to end this. So, my book, Sleep Tight, #1 Secret to Achieving Your Dreams, has more grounding tools like this, where I actually get deeper into the things that affect your sleep, things like boundaries, your emotional regulation, like your relationship with emotions. And I talk about mindset, and I talk about nutrition, and I just talk about self-compassion and how I've applied all these tools to myself as well. So I think if you've enjoyed this conversation, you likely would like the book.
I can't wait to read the book.
Yes. This was very grounding, in alignment with how the book was written, actually. So thank you all for watching.